to find the 8 people believed
güvenli alana geçiyoruz bizler şu anda. Vatandaşları da görüyorsunuz. Deprem oluyor gene.
Quake hit in southern Turkey with a 7.8 magnitude and shook buildings as far away as Israel. A second quake followed with hundreds of aftershocks. A moment of pure terror, people fleeing for their lives in Malatya, Turkey. Whole buildings reduced to dust as the powerful earthquake ravaged Turkey and Syria. Rescuers now battling freezing temperatures as they sift through debris, searching for survivors and pulling out the dead. Many left waiting in shock for news of family and friends.
There are people still trapped under rubble. I have a friend living in this apartment. His children were rescued from the top floor, but his daughter broke an arm. We'll see what happened to those living on the ground floors.
Turkey's President Erdogan called it the worst disaster since the 1930s.
Deprem bölgesindeki pek çok binada
We do not know how far the number of dead and injured will rise as debris removal works continue in many buildings in the quake zone. Our hope is that we will recover from this disaster with the least loss of life.
One woman trapped in her destroyed apartment building rescued by crane. Cheaply and improperly built apartments have been a problem across the country, many of them now teetering on the edge of collapse. Across the border in Syria, workers scrambled to pull victims out from under destroyed buildings. A harrowing scene of a baby born in the rubble who was rushed to safety. The mother did not survive. Elsewhere, a rescuer frantically carried a little girl away from ruins. One survivor of the quakes described his family's escape from an almost certain death.
I have 4 children and my wife. We were at home sleeping peacefully. We felt the quake. It was very strong, so I pulled out with my wife and kids and ran directly towards the entrance of the house. As we reached the entrance of the building, it collapsed totally on us. A wooden door fell on us, which saved us. The building consists of 4 stories. None of the people in the other 3 stories have survived.
At this hospital in Afrin, more evidence of the enormity of the loss. Bodies wrapped in blankets fill the floor. The hardest hit regions in Syria are home to millions of displaced refugees from the country's civil war, living in poverty with little access to healthcare and few resources. The United Nations Secretary General tonight calling for support for both countries.
Let's work together in solidarity to assist all those hit by this disaster, many of whom were already in dire need of humanitarian aid.
The U.S. says it's working with Turkish authorities to provide assistance and rescue crews. More offers of aid have been pouring in as the world watches the death toll climb.
Desperate scramble toward one of the first aid trucks to arrive in the city of Pazarchuk. It was at the epicenter of the second deadly quake that struck Turkey. Much of this community is now unlivable, and many of the dead still lie buried. Residents say these rescue crews arrived 36 hours after the quakes. They're trying to be under all of this. We cannot stand it anymore, says this woman. I've been constantly crying. Her son called his family after the first quake to tell them that he and his wife and 2 children were trapped. They haven't heard anything from them since. Rescue workers believe they found a spot where people are buried, but everyone in this crowd seems to sense this is a recovery mission. You have no more hope. Throughout the town, several buildings look like they're on the verge of collapse. And so it's leaning. Yeah. This was the home that Demirci Surun shared with his mother and his brother. They managed to flee their house after the first earthquake. When they returned after the second, it was clear there was no going back.
It's finished.
He and others told CBC that the government has sent very little help and not much aid here. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is facing re-election in May, visited the town along with other hard-hit areas. He vowed to rebuild everything in a year and quell growing criticism. He urged people not to listen to, quote, the provocateurs and only official government information. During his tour, he visited some of the displaced residents living in government tent camps, but not the Saskara family. 3 generations now living in a makeshift shelter on a sidewalk, in a room thick with black smoke and a fire that doesn't keep them warm enough. It's getting below zero, she says. We need someone to save us, and we don't have any other option. Turkey's president said his government would never leave people on the streets, but the scale of this disaster means that's where many are now. Others are sheltering in bus stations, mosques, even hospitals, anywhere that's warm and safer than the neighborhoods they fled. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Gaziantep, Turkey.